Hello and welcome to another edition of Currently in Quincy. I'm Joe Catalano. On today's program, we'll chat with Alice Arena from FRAX, the Four River Residents Against the Compressor Station, and get an update on their efforts. First, though, we check the news for you. Currently in Quincy, there are 32 active cases of coronavirus that are confirmed in the city, which is down slightly from Friday. It's still higher than the low of 8 cases back in early July. The death toll has remained unchanged for over 2 weeks at 135, and there have been over 1,200 recoveries of the virus in Quincy so far. Quincy Mayor Thomas Koch says he is relieved that last week's tropical storm Isaias wasn't more serious because repairs to seawalls along Howe's Neck and Adams Shore are not finished yet. Koch says the project is ongoing and will provide good flood protection when it's finished.
A lot happening along the waterfront, a lot of work being done, and I'm grateful for the team for that. So the next few months, as we continue to work on the seawalls, we'll be working with Council McCarthy and engineering team to evaluate all these models and then begin implementing the necessary improvements on that. So, you know, things are going well. We got a lot of infrastructure work done in our city, and one of the main pieces that we're addressing is our waterfront areas to protect our neighborhoods and homes from storm surges and storm water. So a lot of work to be done, but I want to thank everybody involved to date and hope to have future updates very soon.
Koch says that he anticipates the projects being completed in time for the winter nor'easters this year and next. Quincy police are charging a homeless woman with setting 2 cars on fire recently, sparking some small brush fires. 34-year-old Casey Josephson was picked up on an arrest warrant over the weekend in connection with those fires along Quincy Avenue near Faxon Park and behind the Walmart store on Falls Boulevard. Police say Josephson set the cars on fire on August 2nd, sparking some small brush fires. There were no injuries. Firefighters quickly doused those flames. The controversial thin blue line flag that was ordered removed from Hingham fire apparatus was flown from Quincy's Rescue 1 over the weekend. The flag is making its way around the region after Hingham determined that it violated a town policy prohibiting political statements on town property. It was created in memory of slain Weymouth Police Sergeant Michael Chestnut. Over the weekend, Quincy Fire and police personnel, along with Mayor Thomas Koch and Chestnut's widow, Cindy, all helped hang the flag from Rescue 1 and then remove it and send it on to its next stop. Flag also made a stop at the former Beachcomber nightclub on Quincy Shore Drive, where Sergeant Chestnut had once worked. The North Quincy Business District getting some new historic-looking street lights. The city says it's installing 50 decorative light fixtures and poles to improve public safety with better lighting on sidewalks and also updating underground electrical infrastructure systems. The fixtures are called dark sky friendly Augusta fixtures, and they're manufactured by Spring City Electric. Officials say the project will take place in several stages, replacing about 10 fixtures at a time in order to maintain adequate lighting. Coming up, we will check in with Alice Arena from the Four River Residents Against the Compressor Station. That's next.
Protect yourself from mosquito and tick bites. Use an EPA-approved repellent anytime you're outdoors. Spray it on your hands first, then spread it on your face, neck, arms, and legs. Learn more at mass.gov/mosquitoes and ticks.
In with Alice Arena from FRAX, the Four River Residents Against the Compressor Station. She's been a guest here on the program before to chat about the natural gas compressor station that is being built on the banks of the Four River in North Weymouth. And Alice, it's nice to see you again.
It's good to see you, Joe. Thanks for having me on.
No, it's our pleasure. I thought, given the circumstances, we really should remind folks that FRAX is still very active, still very ongoing, and still very committed to the cause. How has the pandemic impacted your group?
Well, it has had an impact, and you might feel this way too, is that it sort of takes the air out of the room, if you will. We obviously were exercising our First Amendment rights back in January and February. And then with the shutdown, we made the determination that this was not something that could be done safely, either for our members or for certainly the people who are, in the jails and in those systems. So we ended that practice, shall we say, and we've gone to doing things like car parades and social distancing protests and sign holding and things like that. Always mandatory masks and social distancing and, that kind of thing. But it really has kind of taken that portion out of the situation. However, we continue with the legal battles. And you may know that on June 3rd, the First Circuit Court of Appeals vacated the air quality permit. And so now they're back at square one, sort of, with that air quality permit.
Yeah. So did that put a stop to the construction?
No. In the FERC, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission certificate, item 27 said that they had to have all of their permits in order to begin construction. As of mid-November of 2019, they did have all of their permits, and so they began constructing. They asked for the notice to proceed, FERC granted it, and they went ahead. However, there's that little thing. Now they do not have the air quality permit. The air quality permit was vacated by the courts because the Department of Environmental Protection and Algonquin/Enbridge themselves did not do what was called the BACT analysis. And this is the best available control technology. It was something that they had to do. The DEP, we have no clue as to why they just didn't bother. So the court has made that determination, and now they don't have a permit. We have filed a request on the FERC docket to stop construction. We have asked Governor Baker. We have asked the Attorney General and said, why are they being allowed to construct without permits?
And have you received a response to that question?
None.
However, the pandemic has not stopped the workers from going there every single day, right, and working on this project.
Right. And that's another issue, Joe, that we brought up early on, because many of these workers are from out of state. And although some of them, they're long-term type folks, they're coming from Texas and Florida and Georgia. And so they tend to, come up here and stay for the duration. The company does allow them sort of like furloughs. Like they had a couple of weeks at Christmas where they did not operate. And then we had thought they were going to shut down around the 4th of July because that would be a typical time for them to shut down for a week or so. And so we said to the state, are you going to let them go to Texas and then come back here? Governor Baker, in his edicts about what is going to happen in terms of quarantining and things like that, has given a pass to this construction site, but also to all other construction sites in the Commonwealth, saying that if they are necessary, that the workers can come in and out and there's no quarantining. That's a problem. That's a big problem. Because what do you consider necessary? This gas, at this point, they barely have a customer to purchase it. So why is it necessary?
So what is the current status of the station? Is it nearing completion? Is it complete? Where is it in terms of progress?
If I were to, and not being an engineer or a construction person, if I were to give you a figure, I would say it is probably 90% complete.
Wow.
I think they may have slowed a little bit in some of the piping because with this backed analysis that's being forced by the court, they have to look at an electric motor as opposed to a gas turbine. Now, they've already got the gas turbine in there. That was delivered back in December, I think. And so they actually built the building around this turbine. Now, it doesn't mean they can't remove it. And they have these big bay doors that we know are there for them to put more turbines in. So they could remove this. And if the DEP makes that determination that says, you have to use an electric motor because it will take approximately 50% of the pollutants out of this whole situation by having an electric motor as opposed to a gas turbine.
Is that true?
And
Will that actually do that, 50%?
it does. It's close to 50%. I'm throwing out a figure, but it's very, very high.
Okay.
But this analysis is extremely complicated, way above my pay grade.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks at, okay, how much is it going to cost them to put this electric motor in, to purchase it and put it in, as opposed to what is the cost of the tonnage of pollution that the gas turbine will put into the air. So it's a complicated, analysis. But the tonnage that gas turbine is going to put into the Fore River Basin it's enormous.
Who has to conduct that analysis, Alice, and who has to pay for it?
Well, the Department of Environmental Protection was supposed to have done it before they granted the permit.
Okay,
that's why right. Okay. So that's why the court said, no, you can't. We're going to vacate the permit. The court could have done what they call a remand. They could have just sort of said, this doesn't look right. Go back and, look at it again. But instead, they took that extra step to say, no, the permit is no longer valid. Mm-hmm. We're vacating it. Because this backed analysis is mandated when they give an air quality permit to something like this station. And so the DEP just simply, we don't care. So they didn't do it. Who has to pay for it? My guess is the state has to pay for it. Mm-hmm. I make the broad assumption that the DEP has people that do this kind of analysis, but I don't know. We've been looking at the EPA documents and the DEP documents and things like that. And like I said, way above my pay grade.
Sure.
We're looking for an engineering student over at MIT.
Yeah, I think it's important to point out, I think, the differences that the state agency is the DEP, EPA is the federal agency, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the EPA mandates this formula or these rules for the backed analysis. Mm-hmm. And as one legislator put it to me, he said, in former times, the EPA actually would have done their job. but the EPA is not really functioning much at all. So we are relying on the DEP. The DEP did not do their job. And so, here we are.
Okay, so then, what about the state legislature? Are these agencies just allowed to run, rampant without any oversight, or can they be held to task?
Well, question. We asked Friday, we've had legislation to do with climate change, what they call the Road 2050, in things like the Global Warming Solutions Act, which that act was passed under Deval Patrick. And by 2050, we are supposed to be 80% below like 1990 levels for carbon dioxide. The way the state is going right now with this rush to more gas, because it's not just us, there are 7 gas in the state right now. And that is just going to add to the methane load, add to the carbon load. The Judicial Court said in 2017, the Global Warming Solutions Act was not a suggestion. So there's legislation that covers this. And you get into this sort of, the DEP answers to the executive branch. So they answer to Governor Baker. They don't really answer to the legislature, but the legislature can pass laws that tell them what to do.
Yep.
And that's really what needs to happen.
Okay. So more laws than updated laws. That way they can be brought to court if they violate those laws?
Right. Or they have to follow them.
Yeah.
So for instance, here's a weird sort of thing.
Yeah.
One of the problems that we had in our court, our appeal with the DEP for 30 years has not been adding cumulative emissions. Okay, so we call them background emissions. So we can say in the basin, your levels of, certain toxins and what we call particulate matter 2.5 are so close to 100% of the state standards that if you add something else, you're going way over state standards. You're going to be violating the Clean Air Act. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that we're going to try to get them on. They're going to be violating the federal Clean Air Act. Okay. The DEP has been doing this for 30 years. It's not a law. It's not even a regulation. It was a suggestion that was made back in like 1989 from the EPA that said, well, you don't have to add the cumulative emissions. You don't have to add background emissions. So when they look at permitting a place like the compressor station, all they're looking at is what comes out of that. Mm-hmm. They're not adding it to what is coming out of Twin Rivers or Calpine or Beld or Citgo or any of the 8 other polluting facilities. They just pretend that those don't exist.
Okay.
So that's something they could legislate.
Yeah. Plus, as I understand it, there is absolutely no legislative support for this project whatsoever, either at the federal, state, or local level, right?
None. From the town councils and city councils and mayors up to the Massachusetts legislature through our federal officials, the only person who supports this is Governor Charlie Baker.
So it begs the question, why is it even happening?
Well, and this is sort of this is something we talk about, spite. And now this sounds crazy. Right now we watch crazy things. Okay. So we're watching what is happening in Europe and what is happening in Canada with LNG and gas distribution. And so back in 2013, there were contracts that were signed for this gas, okay, that didn't, quote, exist, sort of. It wasn't in play at all. Mm-hmm. And those contracts were signed between an energy company in Canada and Germany. The LNG facility in Canada, a place called Goldboro, was supposed to have been built by now. It has not been built. And so we have something from a Canadian industry paper that goes back to, I want to say 2014, that said that the Canadian company was going to get half of the gas from this project. The LNG plant hasn't been built.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, the Russians have built what they call the Nord 2 pipeline. It goes into Europe. The Germans can buy from the Russians. And although that may not be politically, kind of what they want to do,
Mm-hmm.
that's what it's looking like is happening. And so there's been this domino effect with the contracts that Enbridge had for this gas,
Yeah.
or Algonquin. You can use these names interchangeably.
Yeah.
The contracts have started to fall away. Well, now you've got all this gas. Where's it going?
Okay.
Nobody needs it. So why are you building this? Spite.
Wow.
They can't lose to a bunch of municipalities and a ragtag group of citizens that have said to them from the get-go, you can't put it here. And they can't lose to us. And so part of it is spite, and part of it is probably precedent. If they can put something like this, something as dangerous and polluting as a facility like this in an urban area that is already overburdened by pollution and contains environmental justice neighborhoods, federally and state recognized. If they can do that, they can put it, at your house, Joe, and put it
Okay.
anywhere.
Interesting. Wow, it's a strong accusation, and if it pans out to be true, it's disheartening to say the least. Because this gas that this station will compress, right, is bound for Canada. It's not for our area.
No. So right now, National Grid doesn't need any more gas, and they have said this in their 14-year contract before the Department of Public Utilities.
Mhm.
Now, the Attorney General argued against that contract, saying that the ratepayers should not be on the hook for paying for the Atlantic Bridge project when they're not getting any gas from it.
Right.
And in fact, the gas that's coming up from the Atlantic Bridge is stopping at the Braintree Gate. That's for local distribution. So anything that goes past Braintree that's coming through that compressor station is going directly to Canada.
Okay.
And now the Canadians don't need it.
So interesting. But the Attorney General is part of the Baker administration, so he'll have people in his own administration telling him it's not needed.
Right, exactly. So, of course, she's elected, different. So she's not really, we'll say, beholden to the administration as we have seen in the past. And her brief on the Department of Public Utility was very clear. And she said, and she took the time to say that it added insult to injury to the people of the basin. We're taking the risk, the toxins, we're getting none of the gas. But if you have gas in your house, you're paying for the Weymouth compressor station.
Right. Tell me about.
So,
yeah, go ahead, Ellen.
Well, like you said, it's a strong accusation to say
Yeah.
it's spite and precedent, but actually that also might be illegal because you're not giving the people this gas. How can you possibly be charging them for it?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about FRAX, or for folks who might not know, who are you folks? How many of you are there? How do you meet and gather? How are you paid for?
Oh, that's a great question. I'll save that for the end. So
Okay.
we started out simply as a citizens organization. A friend of mine sent me an email and said, "You know what they're doing in Weymouth?" This is back in 2014. I said, "I have no idea what they're doing in Weymouth." And I took a look at it and I went, "Oh God, no, you can't do this." I have family that lives in North Weymouth, so this is not a good idea. So we started there around January of 2015, and I think our first public meeting was in March of 2015. And, I put it out on Facebook, and my niece and a friend of mine built the Facebook page and just kind of spread the word. And so we started out as a very simple citizens organization, but it brought to the table some incredible people. I mean, we've had Mike Lang with us usually, and Mike's been doing this stuff for 40-something years, and he is just a wealth of knowledge. But we've brought in other people. When I say we brought in, they have come to us. We didn't know who these people were. We have physicists and biochemists and people with public health, backgrounds, just incredible people who have come and worked with us. One of our original members was actually Sue Harden, and she lived in Quincy at the time. She was one of the people that helped write the environmental justice policy for Deval Patrick's administration.
Okay.
So, I mean, this is nuts, right? And these people just kind of gravitated. So now we have become a 501c4. We are incorporated. We have a board. I'm the president and also the executive director. I have several jobs. And how are we paid for? I've written many grants. Those grants go directly toward things like legal fees, advertising. We've got a billboard that's going up in the Landing in a couple of weeks. We have digital billboards right now up on the Lindway so that Governor Baker can enjoy our advertising. Those just went up on Monday. We have to post. We have a picture from the webcam, so we have to post that. We also, the grants have paid for our air quality testing, the PM 2.5 monitors that we started with in 2016, and then all of the volatile organic compound testing that we actually are starting up again. I have canisters in my mudroom, and I have to go out and lay out the canisters again. So that's what the grants pay for. As far as any of us getting paid, none of us get paid.
Okay.
We have a 15-person board. No one has ever taken a dime.
Right.
So, and as far as membership goes, our email, we use that as sort of our membership list. Our email is over 1,500.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
I know you've been praised by officials for your grassroots organization and for your dedication and commitment to this cause. Really, you've been held up as kind of a role model for grassroots organizations. Did you ever think that it would get to this point when you first started?
No. Mike Lang said to me, I think it was maybe the first time I met him in person, he said, do you have any idea what you're getting yourself into? I said, I don't have a clue.
Yeah.
He said, you're giving up 10 years of your life. He said, I'm just letting you know. And it's been, it'll be 6 years in January.
Yeah. What do you think is the outcome, Alice? What are you, and what's your gut tell you, and what do your lawyers tell you? What do your elected officials tell you?
It's tough. We know, I can say this with certainty now, it's going to get built. We've had some ideas of what we're going to do in the building when they abandon it. So, there's going to be the new Boys and Girls Club of Weymouth, or Mike Lang wants a water park, but, whatever. So once they abandon it, we have plans. So we're working on those plans, those ideas. And my gut tells me that it may become operational, but not for long. If it becomes operational at all. Mm-hmm. They don't have any place to put the gas. This is where it kind of gets to. You could say, well, okay, they're going to send it to Nova Scotia to this LNG plant that has not been built, that actually has a drop-dead date on the financing, I believe, is September 30th. So we're watching this very, very carefully because their financing is saying, we're taking a powder. Mm-hmm. We've been sitting here for 7 years and nothing has happened. And now this company is Pieridae Energy in Canada. They're looking toward Alberta to get their gas, not the Atlantic Bridge. And then a shout out to the First Nations people in Shubenacadie, Nova Scotia, who have also been fighting this same pipeline because they're trying to put a salt cavern in the tribal fishing waters to store the gas. And they've had some major victories over the past few months in Canada with the courts there. And so this is the Mi'kmaq Nation. And a shout out to them because they watch us, we watch them, trying to protect one another. So we don't call one another protesters, we call it one another protectors.
Okay. The property itself, is it owned by Enbridge?
Yes.
Okay.
They purchased, there's some weirdness going on right now. They purchased the fenced-in area that you see where the compressor is going. They also purchased the West Bank, which is over by the metering and regulating station. And they purchased all this property from Calpine. They did not purchase the conservation area, which is Kings Cove Park that runs up on the right side. However, they are now telling us that they are going to take responsibility for that portion of the property in terms of the contamination there, the erosion on the embankment. Literally, the peninsula is collapsing into the sea. And this has been going on to the point where we're actually concerned there's a huge sewer pipe that goes into the MWRA pumping station. And we have to consider this erosion is encroaching on that pipe. So Algonquin and Enbridge have said, we'll take responsibility even though they don't own the park. This causes us great concern because these people do not do something to be nice. Whatever they're doing, there's something else going on in the background that we have to be concerned about.
Okay. Has there already been some types of emissions from this compressor station site?
Yes. So, and I want to back up a little because Mayor Hedlund will, have his say. And the metering and regulating station has been there for 20 years. And that station has blowdowns with some regularity. Okay. So these are releases of raw methane that go straight up on the bridge, which is hilarious because the blowdown pipe is right there. Not hilarious if you're driving over the bridge. So that's been happening for 20 years. The compressor station, they just recently were working on hydrostatic testing of the hookup pipes and, that kind of thing. And so they had to blow down the system. And so they gave us the date. They let us know like Friday at 5:00 that on Monday they were going to start a week's worth of these blowdowns. We did capture some. Professor Nathan Phillips from Boston University and Bob Ackerley have equipment that they bring, and they can see when there is a spike in the methane, so they know when this is happening. So that happened for about a week and a half in July, where they were releasing this. Now, people will say, well, it's methane. Okay, but it's not. It's fracked gas, which adds a level of volatile organic compounds that you wouldn't find in, say, the methane that comes off a pile of cow manure.
Okay.
That's methane too. It's the same chemical compound. But what is coming through those pipes is loaded with other volatile organic compounds. Most of them carcinogenic, not stuff you want to be breathing.
Right. I can't help but think that in this current pandemic that we're in, which is essentially a respiratory disease, that people who are compromised living in that area, this will just exacerbate that.
Exactly. Thanks for bringing that up. So we know that the COVID has affected environmental justice areas far, far worse than it does that areas are not considered EJ. So, we're talking Chelsea, Brockton, Springfield. It has also very severely affected Quincy. And that's because you have Quincy Point and you have Germantown, you have full EJ neighborhoods there. That's going into East Braintree now. If the census gets done correctly, we'll probably be seeing some of that happening as well. And we know that it's because if you live in an EJ area, you're already breathing bad air. So when something like the coronavirus comes along, it's going to hit you worse because you've started out behind the game.
Yeah.
The legislature is very clear on this. They have a great understanding of this. Environmental justice legislation was passed. Now this is going to go to reconciliation between the House and the Senate, but we're going to be pushing really, really hard on that.
Okay. With the, in an election year, Alice, what is FRAX doing lobbying wise to push your cause through?
Well, like you say, lobbying wise. So we have been in touch with our representatives about this EJ legislation. We encourage our members to call and send emails and, be involved, push this as fast as you can. We have decided as a board that we do not endorse particular candidates,
Okay.
although we work with all. And this is just because, we're going to have to work with you. No matter if you get elected or don't get elected, we're going to have to work with you. And so we find that that's the ecumenical place to be.
Mm-hmm.
So our efforts will be spent on lobbying to make sure that this legislation gets in there and is strong.
Okay. What is the immediate next step for FRAX?
Well, so we're also working on getting an air quality monitor that was promised to us by the state. And so that is supposed to be going in. I do have to do follow-up on that because we're not seeing the action that we should be seeing on that. We want that up and running before they turn on the gas. So we're working on that. We will also be continuing air quality studies as we go forward. If the station becomes operational, our goal will be to shut it down.
All right. Are you doing virtual meetings among the group?
Yes, we do. And so our virtual meetings typically are the second Tuesday of every month. If you send us an email at nocompressor@gmail.com, we'll make sure that you get hooked up to the meeting. We are a little bit careful with that because we do not want trolls in the meeting and we don't want to have any problems. So unlike our public meetings where you could walk in the door and we could make sure that we vetted you, we can't do that on the Zoom platform. And so let us know if you would like to come to our monthly meeting. This month, however, our meeting will be on August 12th, and that's to accommodate Mayor Headland's schedule. We've asked him to come and speak to us. There's a lot of people that have a lot of questions about what the town has done, what the town is doing. And so he has granted us this audience. So that will be Wednesday, August 12th. The meeting starts at 7 o'clock. And again, send us an email at nocompressor@gmail.com and we'll get you on the list.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add right now?
Just keep fighting. Just keep fighting. Don't give up.
Okay. The main website, nocompressor.com, right?
Correct. Main website, nocompressor.com.
Okay. Thanks so much for your time, Alice. Great to see you.
Joe, thank you very much. It's good to see you.
You're very welcome. Special thanks to Alice Arena from the Fore River Residents Against the Compressor Station. Thanks to our crew, and thank you for watching. And a reminder to participate in the Quincy COVID Memories Project. Submit your videos, your photos, your art, your essays, any other experiences of life in Quincy during the pandemic to quincyculturalmemory.com or send them to the Thomas Crane Library, attention local history, 40 Washington Street, Quincy, 02169. And an invitation to you, visit our newly redesigned website, qatv.org. You will find all of our latest programs along with news and information, video on demand, online classes, and now live streaming. For all of us here at Quincy Access Television, I'm Joe Catalano. Please stay safe.